Hello everyone, welcome back to A Wild Approach. In today's video, I'm going to give a garden tour. Now, this was filmed at the beginning of June, so when I say June garden tour, that's what I mean in this video. I filmed things ahead of time, so by the time you're seeing this, some of this stuff may still be in bloom and some of it may not be in bloom any longer, so keep that in mind when watching this video. I thought it would be fun to show you these overhead shots first. Really love how it's looking right here at the beginning of June. So pretty, so lush. And I just love this view up on the front porch. It's gorgeous. I don't sit out here enough. And then here are some grapevines that just pop up. I don't plant these, they just come up on their own. I still haven't figured out what kind of grapes these are. If you guys know, feel free to put your guesses in the comments, but I don't know. I haven't identified them yet. I should be able to though, because I got some pretty good footage of them in this clip. And then here is Gate Garden, which needs some work. I need to work on the understory. I need to work on the ground covers in this area. I've got Laurel-leaf sage, I've got Pearly Everlasting and purple coneflower, and some blue mistflower, but other than that, a lot of things have kind of died off. I used to have liatris in there and they're gone, so I need to work on that. Down here is Hummingbird Haven, which I've talked about in other videos. And it's pretty exciting because at the beginning of June, you can kind of see yarrow is just starting to bloom and penstemon is just finishing up. So as the penstemon finishes up in this garden, the yarrow takes over. And that is something I'm trying to get better at with each garden. By the way, I am just a home gardener. I am not a botanist or a horticulturist or anything professional like that when it comes to plants. So everything I do is just based on things I've learned through webinars. I've watched a lot of Wild Ones webinars. A lot. I've lost count how many webinars I've watched. But between that and just things I've seen in person, people that I've met, things they've told me, reading books. I have a lot of books on native plants and gardening in general. And so that's where I get my info from, other than obviously on the internet and videos I've watched and Bone App. You know, I love Bone App and I love the National Wildlife Federation website. But anyway, here is my 9-bark, common 9-bark shrub. It's been done blooming for several weeks now, or at least a week or two now. It's been done blooming for a while. And I think I mentioned it in a previous video. I think you need like 2 or 3 common 9-barks to get them to go to fruit or to seed. So keep that in mind. I have anise hyssop on the left of the screen, which is, it's technically not native to my state, I don't think, but it is one of those that's native more up north, and it is just a powerhouse for pollinators. This is Verbena bonariensis. It is also not native to my area, but it's one of those that I had when I first started gardening, and I was doing a lot of traditional gardening, and I just kind of kept it because I love it. It's a pollinator powerhouse. This is buttonbush. This is a straight species buttonbush I grew from seed. Late bone set on the right and some zinnias on the left and some coreopsis in the middle. And then here is American plum. Look how lush this thing has gotten over the years. It's not even been in the ground that long, just a handful of years, and it's already this huge. And to the right of it is a coral honeysuckle, a Carolina jessamine, and as you can see, the coral honeysuckle is what you see that's red on the screen right now. It's getting a little bit of intermittent blooming. It actually blooms the best in like spring, like early spring. And then in front of that, I've got an arrowwood viburnum that the coral honeysuckle is absolutely trying to devour. And I just haven't been brave enough to prune the coral honeysuckle to give the arrowwood viburnum more room. I'm just hoping that they can just commingle. This is, I forget what that's called. It is actually native, but it just pops up. That was blue mistflower that you just saw at the end there. And clearly I filmed this way too fast because I'm having trouble telling you all the plants. But here is wild bergamot. This is native. And of course we've got the bees going wild on this thing. They're loving it. and we'll be back after this break. Hi guys, could you hit the like button underneath this video? It helps me know which videos resonate most with you guys. Do you need a short, quick guide to get started in wildlife gardening? Well, turns out I've got just the thing. I just came out with a new free ebook just for you, and it's called A Wild Approach to Gardening 101, and it's available on my website today at macylou.com/shop. It's free, so go check it out. What do you have to lose? Alright everybody, we are back. We're at the patio now, and you can see this retaining wall that I really want to do an art installation on, and I plan to do that. And here's the main path through to the gate. I've got lance leaf coreopsis in the bottom left, the yellow flowers, and then the bottom right. On the left here is Gara. This is also known as bee blossom. And I've got a lot of ironweed planted in here, and then some verbena bonariensis and some goldenrod that popped up on its own, and then mountain mint, hoary mountain mint. This is my favorite mountain mint so far, but I also love clustered mountain mint because clustered mountain mint is a powerhouse for pollinators. It's one of the top pollinator plants in our local area, and maybe even for the Northeast too. I forget how much of the region it's like a #1 plant. But anyways, we've got more ironweed, verbena bonariensis, some of those grapevines again, and then Russian sage. Obviously Russian sage is not native, and past the Russian sage is more hoary mountain mint. I need to think about moving it from this spot. It seems to be getting engulfed by the ironweed and the Russian sage, and the gate kind of casts some shade on it, so I'm not really sure. I should probably move it. I'm thinking about trimming back a lot of the ironweed and frostweed, because especially up here near the path, just so I can get some better views of some of the other plants right now, and they'll bounce back fine. Those plants are tough. And here is the pond, you guys. It is doing its thing. I've seen so much life in this pond. It's incredible. I was so giddy last week when I was looking at this pond. I was just overjoyed. I was seeing all kinds of life. The water striders exploded in population. The tadpoles exploded in population. There were more eggs that were laid again from the frogs again, so I had a whole second set of frog eggs. I haven't seen the dragonfly eggs or dragonfly larvae yet, but I've seen them laying eggs in the pond. I don't know when I'll get to see those little larvae, but I'm so excited about it. And the water striders there's just so many of them now. It is wild, and they eat mosquitoes like nobody's business. So we do still have mosquitoes, but I can see that like the numbers of the mosquito larvae in the pond has gone down by almost all of them are gone. Like there's just a few here and there that I'll see. Like I'll see 1 or 2 here and there. Whereas if you remember the first footage, the first clips of the pond, it was full of mosquito larvae because there were no predators in that water yet, or there were just like 1 or 2 water striders, and they just had to like catch up to like eat those, and then they had to make more baby water striders, and so it took a while for it to balance out, but now I think it's finally balancing out. And so I'm really excited about that. I've planted several more pond plants, but I will go into more detail about the pond in a separate video, so don't worry. This is not a comprehensive video about the pond. This is just, hey, the pond is part of the garden tour because it's in the garden. And here is pickerel weed. And what's interesting is I got this pickerel weed from one person, and I got my other pickerel weed from a different person. And I don't know what it is about these plants, but to me, they look like they are totally different species. I'll have to show you. I think it'll be in the pond video. I don't think it's in this video. But the other one is blooming now. I'm recording the audio for this video on June 17th, but the footage you're watching is from like early June. And by now, by June 17th, I already have footage of the blooms of this other quote-unquote pickerel weed. Pretty interesting. To me, they look like totally different species, but every time I put them in iNat, it says they're the same species. My friends have both said that that's the species that each of them are. So I am kind of confused, but it may just be one of those things where the plant has multiple variations of itself in the wild, and maybe that's what's going on. And so it's just, it's really fascinating, but we will see how that shakes out. And then, of course, here's one of the little actually two with the little water striders having a blast. And as like we don't have rain for a while, the water gets more clear. It gets easier to see through. And when we get these storms and these rains that are like, they've been really intense lately, it clouds up the water again. And so that is something that happens that I didn't really think about when I started. I didn't really think about the rainstorms that we get affecting the cloudiness of the water, but it definitely does. And some of you have mentioned, oh, by the way, this is lizard's tail, and then I think this is path rush. Anyway, some of you have mentioned a bog filter and that I should watch videos on bog filters. I do need to check that out just to get an idea of what all that entails, and I have not done that yet, full disclosure. I just haven't had time to yet. I was actually just out of town. I just got back, and I was preparing for that, and yeah, so I do want to look into it, but so far, I'll tell you what I'm nervous about. So I'm nervous about the little tadpoles getting sucked up into any kind of filter. So from the beginning of this pond, my intention was to never have any kind of mechanism, any kind of like pump or filter or anything in there, because I wanted it to be like extremely frog friendly. And so think of it as like somewhere between a vernal pool and a pond. So like it's more stagnant on purpose, if that makes sense. And so that was my intention. That doesn't mean I'm not going to look into it though. I still want to learn about a bog filter. I still want to see if there's a way to do it where the tadpoles will be okay. Because so far I have had at least two sets of tadpoles, and I don't really want to ruin that, and I don't really want them to get sucked up in that because they're just so small when they first hatch. Like, so tiny. And then as they get bigger, they get bigger. And so depending on what that filter or pump or whatever will do, you know, I don't know. I just have to look into it. But I just wanted you guys to know that because you guys have been very helpful leaving comments about ideas, things that have helped your pond water clear up and things like that. But I also kind of was curious, like, what? Oh, by the way, this is coral berry, which I have some ideas for coral berry. I'm kind of testing some things, and then tucked in there, which you wouldn't expect, is butterfly weed because they love full sun. But I planted those years before I planted the switchgrass, and the switchgrass has gotten very, very tall. So I might try to move the butterfly weed. I don't know though, because they have a taproot. They can be hard to move. But anyway, so like my human eyeballs would love to see the pond water, you know, more clear and easier to see through for my own selfish reasons, to be able to see the wildlife better. But then I thought about it too, and I was like, well, but isn't it kind of good for it to be hard to see in the water, because then the wildlife is safer from predators? I don't know. Like, the tadpoles can't be seen as easily until they get just within a couple inches of the surface, or if they're in the shallow ends of the pond. You know, otherwise they're pretty well hidden because the water is cloudy. I don't know. You guys, I would love to hear your comments about that. As my plants grow, though, they should also help shade the pond around the edges. They should help protect the bank of the pond a little bit better. They should help with habitat for the wildlife. I'm already seeing tadpoles kind of feeding around the roots and the dead branches of plants and things that fall into the pond, so that's pretty cool. And I'm just seeing a lot of activity with that. I see insects fall into the pond, and that is the perfect food for water striders, by the way. They love that. They love when like little ants or little flies or whatever fall into a pond and drown, because that's one of their main food sources. So anyway, right now you're seeing cubbyhole garden. This is basically between the property line and Habitat Hedge, the west end of Habitat Hedge, and that is where I have my American plum, or some of my American plums, a red bud, an elderberry, an eastern red cedar, and to the left of the screen right now is my black cherry tree. So we have this little opening so that we can get in here, and then we have the other path on the left over there that goes toward the arbor. And I just love this little entrance between the main part of the garden and the cubbyhole garden. And the cubbyhole garden is very, very shady, whereas the main garden is a lot more sunny, a lot more hot. And so if you need to get some shade and you need to cool off, the cubbyhole garden is the place to go. I do plan to add a bench or a chair in there, maybe 2 chairs, just depending on what kind of furniture I can get in there and what makes sense and what's practical and what would fit in there well. Over here we've got a little spider on a web. I don't know if you can see that okay on the footage there, but pretty cool. And there's some white avens, some frostweed, some garden phlox, which I forget the scientific name off the top of my head, but the garden phlox has gotten very tall and has toppled over, as you can see, because even though it has small flowers, it has those small flowers on a very big flower head. And so once they bloom out, you know, when they're not bloomed out, they stick up pretty straight, but then once they bloom out, they are toppling over. And so it's a good thing I have all that frostweed on the left to kind of catch it so it doesn't go all the way to the ground, but I need to remember that for next year because I'm going to want to stake that up. I'm going to want to use like a peony stake or something to keep that corralled because that's going to bug me. And anyway, and the reason it bugs me is not because it's messy. As you know, I am not really shy when it comes to messiness. It's more of I can't get good footage and pictures of the butterflies using the phlox if I can't see it. So I'd like for it to be upright so I can actually get those pictures and videos a lot easier. And then we've got Rudbeckia triloba on the left there. And it has gotten way taller than I expected. I don't know why, but I thought that plant did not get that tall. Anyways, here's one of my pawpaw trees that I grew from seed. I know a lot of you are really intrigued by pawpaw trees, and so I think I need to do a video dedicated just to pawpaw trees because there's just so many interesting little tidbits about them that I haven't really gotten into even in videos where I talk about them a little bit more. And I feel like it would be great to go to Seven Islands, which is Seven Islands State Birding Park, I think it's a very long name, but it's only about, I don't know, 20 to 40 minutes away from my house. I forget exactly how far. It's just far enough that I don't go there often enough, but I go there maybe 2 or 3 times a year typically. Maybe like twice a year. And it's just one of my favorite places. It's wonderful. It's got so many different little habitat types, different kinds of forest types, I guess you could say, and it's got like prairie areas, it's got landscaped garden areas, and it has, of course, a pretty big focus on native plants, and there's an island there that is just full of pawpaw trees. So when people tell me they like pawpaw trees, I tell them you've got to go to Seven Islands. You've got to go to Seven Islands, especially if they're local. I preach the word of Seven Islands, apparently. Anyway, this is my button bush. It is what I believe to be Sugar Shack cultivar button bush because those stay shorter, supposedly, and so far they're staying pretty short. The straight species can get up to 10 feet tall, but it can also get up to 20 feet tall. So the straight species can be very variable on its height. And so I have cultivar ones down here, and then up the hill I have straight species. Anyway, this is pale purple coneflower, which I think is Echinacea pallida, if I remember correctly. And it's been gorgeous this year. I think this was the first purple coneflower in my garden to bloom this year, so that's great to note. And the you'll see in a minute the Tennessee coneflower. But anyway, over here I've got my oak leaf hydrangea, and it is like, I think it's the Snow Queen cultivar. And as you could see, potentially, I kind of went away from it too quickly, but I cut back a lot of frostweed that was in front of it so that it could shine a little bit more this year. I feel like last year it got completely engulfed in the frostweed a little too much. Love my frostweed, love it dearly, but it is prolific. Anyway, here is the Tennessee coneflower. It is, I don't even know, it just can't really be beat by many coneflowers in my humble opinion. It is so somehow dainty and delicate, and yet also badass and vibrant in color. I mean, I don't ever have to put any filter on this flower. It's already so saturated in color. It's wild. And they're pointed toward the east, I think, in this footage. And this garden is called Eastwick. And so as you can see, they're pointed away from us, which is kind of funny. I almost feel like I should have planted them on the opposite side of this little lawn area so that you could see the middle of the flowers better, but you know, what are you gonna do? And here is the pond garden now that used to be Peninsula Garden, and it's got, you know, Washington hawthorn, it's got late purple aster, it's got common milkweed, it's got volunteer asters, it's got ironweed, it's got penstemon, it's got, I think it's got lanceolate coreopsis, it's got verbena bonariensis, all kinds of good things in there. And we're just going to sweep around. You can see the eastern redbud that I have on this side, and in the distance was a beautyberry, American beautyberry, which I also have right here. I planted this American beautyberry. Why did I say eastern? American beautyberry from seed from the other one, because I collected the seeds and I grew some from seed from that one, which is pretty cool. Alright, up on the berm of the pond, I have common milkweed, I have anise hyssop that I started from seed, I have late boneset. You can't really see the late boneset in this footage, but it's on the right, behind the common milkweed. And we planted the American water lily, which is, oh gosh, I forget. Is it Nymphea odorata? Oh my gosh, I'm probably not saying that right. But anyway, it's the American water lily, and we planted that. That will be in the pond video. You will see footage of us planting that, which was a very interesting adventure indeed. And I think it was funny the way we did it. So I can't wait for you to see that. And here is the east end of the garden, I guess northeast end of the garden, front garden, and the, oh, I guess I'm going to zoom in on these water lilies, forgot about that. I think the reflection of the American plum in the water is really pretty. Of course, since I'm in the city, you can see the power lines like right there, right above the garden. And this is another reason why this part of the garden is kept more sunny, because I can't plant anything, I can't plant any trees that are super tall over here because they would just hit the power line. It would just be a bad idea. So I just kind of use that as a guide for my garden design ideas. And I was like, okay, we'll just, we'll keep the prairie stuff up here kind of closer to the house, and we'll put the more taller trees further from the house. Things like that. That's the basic gist of it. But yeah, I have a Washington hawthorn tree here, but I think I'm going to trim it as a hedge, like as a shrub, because number one, it's not doing great. So it's not flourishing, so we'll see what happens. And thank you guys so much for being here. I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Hey guys, don't forget to follow me on Blue Sky and Instagram. These are the two best social media accounts other than YouTube where you can find me and you can see me post photos of the garden, thoughts on wildlife, and more. So don't forget to follow me over there. Brand new items are now available in the shop. Thanks so much to viewers like you for supporting the channel. To support the channel, like the video, comment, and subscribe. You can also support my work by buying art from me at macylou.com. Thanks for watching!